There certainly is a lot of discussion about red meat. Should we, shouldn't we, how much, what kind? So by the end of this video, you will have all the answers. And I think it's very important. Here at Root Cause, we definitely like a strongly plant-forward diet. That doesn't mean it excludes all meat. So I think it's important to really understand what the research shows us. So there have been several good studies recently looking at quantity of red meat, and this has been supported by the World Cancer Research, Epic Oxford. This particular study that I'm going to tell you about was in the journal Nutrients. It was out of Alberta, Canada, and just 2 years ago, 2021. So what they looked at was a couple of things. They really wanted to look at the correlation between red meat and increasing your risk of heart disease and cancer. So good afternoon, hi. And so when people say hello, I'm going to acknowledge, or when they ask a question. So yeah, so they're looking at red meat, the risk for heart disease, the risk for cancer, so that's critical, and how, it was good because the study said, well, we don't just eat one kind of food, we have mixed meals. So why don't we look at red meat that's unprocessed, red meat that's processed, and then also low level and then high level of fruits and vegetables. Okay, so that of course includes a lot of fiber. And what did that look like? And I think it's really fascinating. So the first thing, just let's get the bad news out of the way, and that is that processed red meat, so that's your bacon and your salami and your pastrami, anything that's cured, salted, etc. It didn't matter how many fruits and vegetables you ate. So even if you were in the high group of fruits and vegetables, it was not ameliorated. It didn't make any change in your risk profile for heart disease and cancer. So that's the bad news on the processed meat. But we already know that processed meats have a risk for cancer. So that's not surprising information. But maybe the fact that it wasn't at all swayed by a diet high in fruits and vegetables might be, surprising. So that out of the way. Now let's look at unprocessed red meat and how much. So what they looked at was 500 grams per week. And that is the threshold that not only this study found, but again, the World Cancer Research. And this came out a few years ago where they talked about 500 grams of meat per week. And so, of course, you want to know what that is. Now, if that 500 grams was associated with low amounts of fruits and vegetables, then you still had an increased risk of heart disease and cancer. And it was almost 2 times, 1.8 times in the average person they were looking at. So as they followed them up for risk of cancer, heart disease. So a pretty high risk increase when you were in that low fruit and vegetable category. But what about if you were in the high? And what is low? Less than 3 servings, which unfortunately is what the average American eats. We're recommended 7 to 9 servings, so that was the high category. But in the low category, it was what unfortunately the typical American eats, which is less than 3 servings per day. So we want to then say, okay, so at what level of red meat were we okay? And that was that 500 gram or less category. So, and this is 500 grams per week, okay? So not to confuse you. We're looking at 500 grams per week. Now, if we divide 500 grams, we want to have some beef every single day. That's about 70 grams per day. That is 2 strips of bacon. That is 1.5 sausages. Oh, and 1/3 of an 8-ounce steak. So if that doesn't excite you, then that's why when the research came out, they said 500 grams per week, and then they contained that within the recommendation of 3 servings per week to get you to that 500 grams. But I looked up a McDonald's burger, and that's 200 grams. So you're not getting 3 of those because that's already 600 grams and you're out of the threshold. So you have to look at the size of what you're consuming. And I don't know if you want to be right at that threshold or you want to be a little bit below for safety measurement. But the 500 grams, which is, so they recommended 3 servings a week, and to get to that 500, along with, had to be paired with high fruit, high vegetable, and of course all the great fiber that comes with fresh fruits and vegetables. And then you are protected, and the potential damage of heart disease and cancer was protective with the high fruits and vegetables. Again, 7 to 9 servings. And if you want to know about fiber, it's recommended to consume anywhere from 25 to 40 grams of fiber per day, women being a little less, men being a little bit higher. But again, our average American is more 10 to 15 grams. So very much off the mark. So we really miss the mark on fruits and vegetables. We really miss the mark on fiber. And surprise, surprise, we have a lot of heart disease and cancer. So it doesn't have to be red meat bad. It can be minimal red meat with good fruits and vegetables, good and fine. So I think it's important to just know the science behind this. There was a lot of studies that came in with this 500 grams a week. So hopefully that gave you the skinny on that. Sorry about the processed meat, no go on that. You want to really avoid that as much as possible. So stick with the fresh, not the salted and cured. And yeah, if you are somebody that has heart disease in your family or cancer in your family, or, I mean, listen, it's the #1 killer, heart disease, and cancer is not far behind. So these little changes that we can make in cutting down the red meat and, of course, pairing it with our fruits and vegetables, that's the sweet spot. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. That's how more people hear the message and just learn about what we do, and that's why I'm here. So I'll see you tomorrow, and have a good night.